When did the Disney Renaissance actually start? Well, there's many schools of thought about this, and to be honest, it's not that interesting. It's not that important a question, but I'll go ahead and explain it anyway. In 1989, The Little Mermaid comes out and reinvigorates the Disney studio, makes them the omnipotent, omnipresent cultural monolith that they had been back in their glory days. So is 1989 the official start of the Disney Renaissance, or did it start earlier? Did it start in 1984 when Michael Eisner became CEO of Disney and installed his regime and sort of reinvigorated the movie company, the vast Walt Disney Company, including its movie studio divisions, in ways that were largely successful? I want to humbly suggest that it actually started in 1986 with the release of The Great Mouse Detective. And this movie was greenlit before Michael Eisner took over, so it sort of straddles eras of Disney. And then it came out and it was well liked and it was a modest success, especially for its budget. But I watched this movie a lot when I was a kid and then hadn't thought about it in decades. But as part of this series of examining lesser heralded animated movies, I watched it again and I thought, this is a gosh darn masterpiece. It is this is the first capital G great movie that Disney has put out since The Jungle Book in 1967, or maybe even you have to go even further back than that. And it might secretly be the very best Disney movie of the Disney Renaissance era. And that might sound like heresy because, we have like Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Lion King and all those. But I think you can at least make a case that this movie deserves to be considered alongside those movies, especially in terms of the beauty of its animation, the delights it contains both visually and the vocal performances. And I think the really fun breakneck pace at which it moves sneakily, maybe best of all, an all-time great animated Disney villain in Professor Ratigan, voiced by Vincent Price. Most importantly of all, though, I think smoking. So much smoking in this movie. Also, smoking's best friend, drinking. Tons of alcohol consumption in this children's movie, and you love to see it. So this movie, this Great Mouse Detective, all starts with a series of children's books called Basil of Baker Street by Eve Titus and Paul Galdone. There were 5 books in the series published between 1958 and 1982. I am not familiar with these books. Apparently the movie makes some pretty significant changes from the books, but that's not my concern. I'm just really talking about the movie. But I think that the premise of the movie and the books starts in the same place, that these are mice versions of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. It seems in the books, the movies have a more direct relationship with Holmes and Watson. They communicate with Sherlock Holmes, whereas in the movie their lives like move in parallel. Like you will see Sherlock Holmes in silhouette occasionally. There's a human Sherlock Holmes and a mouse Sherlock Holmes. The movie also concludes with a human Queen Victoria and then a mouse Queen Victoria, both celebrating their Diamond Jubilee. So it's just a world where the human world is moving in tandem with the mouse world. So presumably we get a mouse Amelia Earhart, a mouse Superman. Mussolini has a mouse. I think even Mickey Mouse, the human Mickey Mouse, has a mouse version. So this is a cute premise for a children's book, but I think it's kind of inert for a movie, to be honest. To this movie's credit, it doesn't do that much with the idea of this is Sherlock Holmes but a mouse. It's not that concerned with that, which is great. I think that it elevates the movie because Oliver and Company, the next movie that Disney made after this, is like way more amused with itself for being Charles Dickens's Oliver Twist, but with dogs and cats. And this movie, rather than becoming its own thing, this movie really becomes its own thing. So the movie gets underway. Its title is Basil of Baker Street all the way pretty much through its production before it gets renamed The Great Mouse Detective. Even when I was a kid, I could tell that The Great Mouse Detective was kind of a boring and plain title. So a little bit more about the history. I mean, I've addressed this in other videos I've made about this era of Disney. My source, once again, is the absolutely invaluable book, Disney War by James B. Stewart, chronicling the Michael Eisner years at the Walt Disney Company. And so when Eisner and his team took over the company, they had no experience at all with animation, but there were questions about whether they even wanted to continue the animation division or shut it down. Now, Michael Eisner's background was in first TV production and then live action movie production at Paramount Pictures. And but the movie studio at the time had The Black Cauldron near completion. That was its next big movie, but nobody anywhere was happy with how it was turning out. That movie looks great, but it has a million story problems, and I've detailed those in another video about the Black Cauldron. So with the movie nearly complete, they screen a print for Michael Eisner and his team, and it goes so poorly. And Eisner says one of the big problems here is you just didn't have a script. He thought that animated movies should be treated like live action movies. When he was running Paramount, he based everything on reading a script, and we revise and we revise and revise until we're happy, and then you get the green light. Then you can go ahead with production. But that was not how Disney had done it. The traditional method for Disney and for other animated animation studios was, rather than doing a script-driven story, you do a storyboard-driven story. Both approaches have their advantages and disadvantages, but Disney overhauled it and switched to script-driven development to great success, to their credit. But with the Black Cauldron in the can, the next project up was Basil of Baker Street, and it was to be the feature directorial debut of John Musker and Ron Clements, who would go on to be maybe the most important Disney animators of their generation: Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Princess and the Frog, and Moana. They're two of the 4 credited directors of the movie, along with Bernie Mattinson and Dave Michner. I don't know much about these other 2 guys. Clements and Musker are the ones who have given a million interviews about all of the stuff they've worked on, including Great Mouse Detective. But they said that they formed their partnership while they were working as animators on the Black Cauldron, and they were very unhappy working on the Black Cauldron. It was clear that they were the talented up-and-coming animators at the studio, so they were allowed to leave that project and go start their own thing. So they went and started Basil of Baker Street, and the studio set up Basil of Baker Street as sort of a failsafe. In case Black Cauldron fell apart, we'll have something for everybody else to go work on. You'll notice Black Cauldron comes out only a year before Basil of Baker Street, at a time when the studio was putting out movies like every 4 or 5 years. So Basil of Baker Street was shepherded by Disney's CEO at the time, Ron Miller, who he took personal charge of it as the producer, which was good for the project. Oh, the CEO really cares about this. Great. But at the same time, Ron Miller, who incidentally was Walt Disney's son-in-law, Walt installed his son-in-law, or he didn't, but when it was still like considered a family company, Walt's son-in-law should be in charge. So he was fighting for his life to stay on as CEO, as there was sort of a board of director coup against him, and he would eventually lose. Michael Eisner would take over. As he was fighting this fight, the Basil project got to just go without a leader, without anybody really noticing. Okay, but then Michael Eisner comes aboard and he's like, so what's going on with this Basil of Baker Street thing that you've been working on for 2 years? And the team, Musker and Clements and everybody, had to essentially pitch the movie again, get a second green light on the movie despite having worked on it for years. They don't have a script to show them. They do instead set up 50 storyboards, really large storyboards, and have to put them up on the walls on lots of hallways and intersecting rooms and stuff. And according to Disney War, it was unclear if the executives who were looking at the storyboards knew what they were looking at or could even understand the story as the animators walked them through everything. So, reading directly from Disney War, quote, Eisner startled them at one point by wondering aloud whether a song in a bar that had already been scored by composer Henry Mancini could be turned over to pop star Michael Jackson. Clements and Musker froze, their dismay evident. Finally, Eisner said, part of your job is to talk me out of bad ideas. Eisner found Basil cute but confusing. He liked the Sherlock Holmes angle. He'd produced the young Sherlock Holmes while at Paramount, but he thought it lacked dramatic structure, the traditional 3-act beginning, middle, and end that had served him so well when judging scripts at Paramount. End quote. But they get the green light because the budget is so small. He gives them a budget of $10 million, and it needs to come out in 1986. It needs to get done soon. And they were able to make it happen. And I think one of the things that makes this movie so special is its intimacy. It is small in scope, small in ambition, and the lower budget, you can see that corners have to be cut, but they're cut in smart ways. Like this movie, the coloring isn't as lush as you would expect in other Disney movies, but because, well, like if you look at the seedy bar scene in this weird sailor bar, you can see in the background all the characters are motionless and shrouded in darkness, but it works because the atmosphere of the movie is seedy, it's drab, it's dusty, it's London of 1897. It makes sense. It uses that setting to its advantage. The character animation, meanwhile, is delightful, and there are some legitimately thrilling action set pieces. So the story of the movie is it opens in a toy shop. Mr. Flaversham, who's there with his young daughter, Olivia, he is showing his daughter, he has made her a new toy for her birthday. Everything in this toy shop and a later sequence in another toy shop. When I was a kid, I think I thought these were the same toy shops, but they're different. But I think that the movie's deliberately harkening back to Pinocchio and Geppetto's workshop in Pinocchio. And it's the stuff with this toy shop, or with these two toy shop sequences, that lingered in my memory. And you know that, like, if you had done this movie with a traditional Hollywood script, they'd say, like, we need to cut this scene, or we need to make it way shorter, because it does not advance the plot. It doesn't do anything to move things forward. But when you're developing a movie with storyboards, and animators developing the story, they know the visual possibilities, the wonders you can explore by really lingering in these scenes. And these are the things that people remember. When people talk about Pinocchio, they talk about remembering all the clocks going on while everybody's asleep in Geppetto's workshop, or when they talk about Cinderella, they remember the mice moving through the walls. And I think that's another thing that makes a great Mouse Detective special, is it's sort of the last movie of the era where you're allowed to just really explore the possibilities of animation while getting the coming, like, really breakneck pace and postmodern humor. So you get the best of both worlds. That's what I'm saying. Mr. Flaversham, the toy maker, he gets kidnapped by a peg-legged bat named Fidget, and then Olivia, the little girl, she runs away, and then she enlists the help of a mouse named Dawson. He has just returned from a mission helping the British Army fail to occupy Afghanistan. This is where I first heard the word Afghanistan. So then when 9/11 happened later in my life, suddenly people were talking about Afghanistan all the time. I was like, oh, like the Great Mouse Detective. So Dawson takes them to hire the detective Basil of Baker Street to find the missing father. Basil is our hero. He is voiced by the British stage actor Barry Ingham, and he is a goddamn delight. He is stubborn, he's annoying, just like the real Sherlock Holmes, and he is manic. He hates children, and he continues to hate children when the movie ends. The movie wisely resists the temptation to turn him into a cuddly father figure. So apparently the original idea for this movie was Olivia, instead of being a little girl, she'll be a sexy lady mouse, and Basil can, fancy her. But CEO Ron Miller, before he was fired, he said, no, we need to make her a kid that'll bring some heart into it. And crucially, it'll preserve the ability for fans to ship Dawson and Basil, which is a key component to any Sherlock Holmes story. So no love interest, no platonic or heterosexual love interest, please. Basil basically has the Alan Grant arc in this movie. He helps this kid, grows a little fond of the kid, but it's not like he's like, oh, well, now I love children. No. He just wants to do the right thing to protect her. On Load-Bearing Views, my podcast, I have sort of a reputation for hating children in movies. Is this fair? Is it fair? Do I deserve this reputation? I don't know. That's not for me to say. But Olivia, she's a good kid. I mean, maybe it's because she's Scottish and I can't be annoyed with any Scot. So like when her dad gets kidnapped by the bat and she crawls out from her hiding place and she's like, Daddy, where are you? Where are you? Like my bitter heart just breaks for poor Olivia. So that's how the movie starts. And then with the father getting kidnapped by Professor Radigan. Professor Radigan is the actual star of the movie, voiced by Vincent Price. Just the most delicious, thick ham steak of a performance you could possibly want for a movie like this. My favorite moment, I think, in the movie is where he gets so angry at his bat minion Fidget that like he's going to have a heart attack and he has to talk himself down from his anger. It's hilarious. I love to see animal organized crime. Radigan leads a gang of mice, and there's a very funny recurring thing where he is clearly a rat. Like his name is Radigan, and he's much larger and has a giant tail, but he makes everyone who works for him insist that he is a mouse. Do not call him a rat. There's some sort of like mouse rat blood feud going on. The movie doesn't really explain it, but it's fun to think about. So Radigan celebrates his criminal brilliance with his gang. He sings his villain song. This movie has 3 original songs, but it's not really a musical. Very strange. I think that the movie starting its first song, 15 minutes into the movie, and starting with its villain song also kind of makes this movie stands out. But the musical number here concludes with Radigan having one of his goons executed for calling him a rat. It's wonderful. It's great. His villain plan is he has kidnapped Mr. Flaversham, the eminent toy maker, to create a robot version, a steampunk robot version of Queen Victoria, who will then take the place of the mouse Queen Victoria. She will then marry Professor Radigan and then allow him to inherit the kingdom of rodent Britain. It's a great plan. I love it. I love how dumb this is and how committed he is to it and how close he comes to seizing the throne. But our heroes, Basil, Dawson, and Olivia, they track the bat minion Fidget to a toy shop, the great toy shop sequence that I mentioned earlier. And I'm reminded watching it now that the movies you watch as a kid that really stick with you, they have this balance of wonder and a hint of like malice and menace. So they're exploring this toy shop. It's kind of magical, but it's also terrifying. You'll see these, like, look at this. This is this jack-o'-lantern toy from hell, like handcrafted for like Damien from The Omen. This is for you, Damien. We did this for you. Who would want this jack-o'-lantern? I don't know, but it friggin' rules. But Olivia gets kidnapped by the bat. Basil, Dawson, they need to go find her in addition to her father. So they head over to a seedy bar for crusty old bastard sailors. And there's an octopus on stage doing an act where it juggles balls, and just the angriest drunks you ever did see heckle it. They throw knives at it. And then like the chanteuse mouse comes out and sings a sexy, sultry song to calm everybody down. But while everybody's getting all horned up for the sexy chanteuse mouse, Basil notices that the bartender is trying to poison him, so he's able to get out of there. Just there's really nothing like this. And a note about the drinks at this bar and in other scenes of the movie, the beer, the foam. It is the greatest looking alcohol and beer I've ever seen in movies. I think when I drink beer to this day, I am chasing the way the beer exists in my imagination from Great Mouse Detective. The bar scene devolves into an all-out brawl. There are a lot of brawls and angry mobs in this movie. It's like The Simpsons. These drunks are all trying to shank each other and beat each other to death with clubs. Our heroes escape. They chase the peg-legged bat to find the secret lair of Professor Ratigan, which is just a barrel with a giant R on it. But it's a trap. Professor Ratigan's waiting for them, and they all just laugh at Basil for being an idiot, and he just hangs his head low because he knows they're right. I am an idiot. I am not the great mouse detective that I consider myself to be. They get tied up and put into this like Rube Goldberg torture device. I don't love Rube Goldberg devices in movies, but this one's really fun. And the villains abandon them to their fate to get killed by the Rube Goldberg device. They're busy. They have to go usurp the throne of England. But I think this is a Joker Batman thing where the Joker actually doesn't want to kill Batman because they're locked in an eternal like dramaturgical dyad. They complete each other. They define each other. So if you're wondering, why does Professor Ratigan just leave Basil here and assume his trap will work? It's because he's not aware of this, but secretly he wants Basil to escape and knows he will. And the very best part of this is that while they are being tortured by this Rube Goldberg machine, Ratigan has them listen to a gramophone record of himself singing a very poorly recorded song about how he will miss Basil when he's dead. And I was thinking, like, this has to be a case where this is one of 3 original songs written for the movie. Maybe it was a budget thing where they planned to actually animate this into a proper musical number, but they lost the budget and they said, okay, well, what can we do with this? And I think it's a great idea to instead have it recorded and played on a record. Just a great idea of working within your limitations, taking what you have. The heroes get away. They expose Ratigan in front of the royal court, but he escapes in a little mouse dirigible, and Basil chases him all the way to Big Ben. And the movie climaxes here in what I think is a like all-time great animated action sequence. Again, it's genuinely thrilling. I put this up with all the the greatest animated action sequences. Yeah, it takes place in and on Big Ben, and the movie didn't have to go this hard with both the animation and the sound design of the gears inside of Big Ben, but I'm so grateful that it did. It's really an arresting image, and it's great sound. Ratigan, again, I think he deserves to be considered one of the all-time great Disney villains because unlike other Disney villains, we see him kill multiple people. Or animals, I guess, including his beloved bat, who he just throws into the ocean to drown. He also attempts to kick a little girl to her death. He fails, but he means to do it. And then he just goes effortlessly from like fun and hilarious to genuinely scary at the end, and both in how he's animated and how Vincent Price performs him. But the heroes prevail. They defeat the evil Ratigan. And the movie sets up a new status quo where Basil of Baker Street and his new trusty sidekick and life partner, Dr. Dawson, they will solve a number of great mysteries. You know, Disney greenlit a sequel to The Rescuers around this time, The Rescuers Down Under. See my video about that. And they said their rationale for doing a sequel was the rescuers are detectives. It makes sense. Have a sequel because the detectives just take another case. I think The Great Mouse Detective makes way more sense to have gotten a sequel. Not that I wish it had gotten a sequel. I think that, you its standalone status is one of the things that makes it special. I'm just saying, I think it makes more sense to get a sequel. I think if there's one reason this movie is not quite as beloved as the other Disney movies from this era or the Disney movies that would come over the next 10 years, I think it's for a few reasons. One is it's not a full-fledged musical. Those 90s Disney musicals, they were so huge in part because their musical sequences, their numbers were so much care, so much investment was put in them. And then the soundtracks, like each movie would sell a Taylor Swift amount of albums on CD and cassette. And these are like Broadway style songs. They give the movie sort of the lasting legacy, whereas this movie it has some good songs, but it's way more about just having fun with the animation and telling a smaller story. But I think another reason is it's about mice, and there were so many goddamn mice animated movies from this period. The Secret of NIMH, The Rescuers, An American Tail, Once Upon a Forest. For some reason, mice were the thing that all these animators from this generation were taught to animate. Mice are humans, but animals. That's basically the function they serve. For that reason, I think they're a little uninteresting, but I think that Grace Mouse Detective is the most successful execution of the animated mouse movie. I think this is one of the very best animated movies of all time, honestly. My nostalgia was earned here, well deserved. Did you watch The Great Mouse Detective when you were a kid, or have you revisited it anytime lately? And will you be sharing this with the future generations of children, because they deserve to see it? Great Mouse Detective, under-heralded animation classic.